Good evening and welcome to the Town of Cary Planning and Zoning Board meeting. Thank you for joining us tonight. I now call this meeting to order. Our board clerk, Julie Mitchell, will take roll call for this evening.
Thank you, Chair. Andy Cohn is absent this evening, and I will call into the record the board members who are present. Mike Roselli, Sean McAndrew, Jessica McClure, John Sorrell, Stephen Crutchfield, Don Hamilton, Mary Jo Hill, Jeff Moncrief, and Chris Johnson.
Thank you. The Cary Community Plan will continue to be the guiding document for this board. Our role is to function as citizen advisors to the town council who will make the final decision on all rezoning activity. Citizen opinions based on the Cary Community Plan document are very important in advising our town leaders. While this is a public meeting, it is not a public hearing. There is no opportunity for the public to speak during this meeting. If you have comments about any of the cases from this evening, we encourage you to reach out to the town staff case manager or the applicant by email or phone. You may also reach out to our board members through email. You may also contact the council directly through email or during the public speaks out portion of any regularly scheduled town council meeting. These meetings may be streamed live on the Town of Cary website and will be posted to YouTube. All past Planning and Zoning Board meetings are available to view on YouTube as well. The first item tonight is going to be the adoption of the agenda. Would someone please make a motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
Motion to adopt.
Second the motion.
Thank you. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The next item is approval of the regular meeting minutes from February 27th. Unless anyone has any changes or corrections, would someone make a motion to approve the February 27th meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Our first case on the agenda is 22 REZ 22, 107 West Park Street. Anna Redling, principal planner, will share the staff's presentation. Following the presentation, the applicant will share their remarks. All board members will have an opportunity to ask questions of the staff and the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Board. This is a request to rezone a .28 acre property located at 107 West Park Street in downtown Cary. The property sits on the south side of West Park Street between South Harrison Avenue and South Academy Street. Across the street is the First Baptist Church. To the south is the old library site. There's an existing circa 1940 house on the property that is the property owner's residence. The site is not in a floodplain or impacted by stream buffers. Nearby South Academy Street is a Go Cary fixed bus route with a street side trail along its east side. And West Park Street is an existing two-lane street with 40 feet of right-of-way and an existing sidewalk on the north side. The transportation plan designates West Park Street as a collector street. Collectors in Cary are usually envisioned to include sidewalk and bike lanes at ultimate build-out. But the plan recognizes in this downtown setting, there's limited room for widening Park Street. Even so, there's still opportunity to add sidewalk on the south side. The current zoning is Town Center General Commercial Conditional Use, or TCGCCU, with conditions limiting the uses of the property to a residence and a bed and breakfast. You may have noticed that general commercial is not a typical downtown zoning district. That's because in 2003, when the town center zoning was first established, about 20 properties in downtown that retained its old zoning because it had previous zoning conditions attached to it. As a result, the property has remained general commercial, but is completely surrounded by high-intensity mixed-use, or HMXD zoning, which is one of the downtown subdistricts, the usual subdistricts. The applicant purchased the property in 2005 and is now requesting to rezone to HMXD conditional use with these conditions. The use would be limited to 2 single-unit detached residential dwellings and associated accessory uses. Each dwelling would have a front or side-loaded garage and would be designed with a hip or gable roof or a mixture of both. The primary exterior sheathing material will be fiber cement, and may include brick or other masonry materials. The maximum height of each dwelling would be 35 feet. Each dwelling will have a 60-amp receptacle in the garage for electric vehicle charging. And materials in the existing house identified by Capital Area Preservation as historically significant will be salvaged for use in other projects. And finally, prior to recordation of any lots, the property owner will deed to the town an additional 5 feet of right-of-way for West Park Street. If this rezoning is approved, the existing detached residential dwelling will remain a legal use in the HMXD district, but construction of any new detached dwellings will require a special use permit from the Zoning Board of Adjustment. On the Imagine Cary Growth Framework Map, the location of the subject property is denoted by the blue triangle you see there in the South Academy Subdistrict of the downtown special planning area. The South Academy Subdistrict encompasses important buildings and streetscapes that create a sense of place for the Cary community. The subject property here in yellow also falls within the boundary of the Cary National Register Historic District. As stated earlier, there is an existing 1940 house on the property, but it's important to note that there is no local historic zoning overlay in place, and the house isn't a designated Cary landmark. Therefore, there are no regulations prohibiting its removal, and this wouldn't change under the HMXD zoning. Staff's review of the Imagine Cary Community Plan indicates that the Shape, Live, Engage, Move, and Serve chapters provide policies relevant to this rezoning. Shape policies support and encourage strategic reinvestment in downtown, adaptive reuse of buildings when possible, appropriate scale and design of buildings, and using design to transition to adjacent development. Live and Engage policies highlight the importance of maintaining the neighborhood character when introducing new development into the South Academy subarea. And Move policies encourage pedestrian connectivity. Serve policies support sustainable energy practices. Staff has analyzed this and has the following observations. The existing house has lost many of its historic architectural elements, and the applicants have indicated they plan to remove it. But remaining historic elements will be salvaged for use in other projects. The applicants have stated that they're limiting the use to detached dwellings with traditional architectural elements so as to fit into the existing residential context of West Park Street. And the applicants are requiring new garages to include EV charging, and they will also convey 5 additional feet of right-of-way to the town. Both of these will help to support the Serve chapter policies and to complete the downtown pedestrian network. On November 2nd, 2022, a virtual neighborhood meeting was held and 5 citizens attended. 1 citizen asked about plans for the existing house. No issues or concerns were expressed. Town Council held a public hearing in January. There were no written comments submitted and no speakers. A council member asked whether items salvaged from the house would be reused in other projects, and staff verified that that was the intention. Staff finds the rezoning supports the Shape, Live, Move, and Serve policies and partially supports Engage policies. The request provides more housing in downtown that will complement the existing residential character of the South Academy area while supporting the use of electric vehicles. The request also adds room to the right-of-way for future sidewalk that will improve pedestrian connectivity. And regarding the Engage policies that have to do with preservation, although the house isn't slated for preservation, Elements have been identified that will be salvaged for reuse in other projects. Overall, staff finds the rezoning request to be consistent with the Imagine Cary Community Plan. This concludes staff's presentation, and the applicant's representative, Mary Elizabeth Smith from Sullivan Surveying, is here to provide comments on the rezoning proposal.
Thank you, Anna, for your presentation, and thank you, board members, for your time and consideration. I'm Mary Elizabeth with Sullivan Surveying, representing my client, Mike and Patty Clifton, the owners of 107 West Park Street. Currently, the property is zoned TCGCCU, and we're asking for TCHMXD zoning. As Anna stated, the reason that this property has a different zoning than the adjacent parcels is because when the downtown was rezoned 20-ish years ago, the property already had conditional uses with it that prevented it from being blanket zoning like its adjacent parcels. Currently, the property is zoned TCGCCU, and we're asking for it to be zoned TX HMXD, which is consistent with the adjacent and neighboring properties. We're also agreeing to the conditional uses presented. We feel that the conditional uses help ensure the neighborhood character of the town center is preserved, will allow for more options for housing for residents, will help with encouraging the vitality of the town center district, and help promote more green living. We feel that the proposed zoning is consistent with the trend and changing developments in the town center and surrounding areas of the property and would benefit the town center district. Thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, I'm here to help answer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Now is the time for board members to ask questions of the staff and applicant if they have any. And we'll start with Mike. Any questions?
Not at this time.
Sean?
No questions?
No questions.
Good.
No questions from me.
Just one question. So it mentions 2 detached dwellings. So it's definitively going to be 2 dwellings. It wouldn't be a townhome or anything along those lines. Like the idea is to have 2 detached dwellings on that spot.
Right, the zoning conditions do limit it to 2 detached dwellings.
But that's the maximum, right? There could be a single dwelling as well, potentially, or it's limited
Sure.
to no more than. It could be.
It's no more than.
Okay, gotcha. Just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
I had just one small question. You noted 5 foot of dedicated right-of-way for a future sidewalk, but sidewalk is not required to be installed as part of the development, or no?
It's not, this would be an exempt subdivision that falls under the state rules for exempt subdivisions because it's no greater than 3 acres being divided into 2 lots. And so that is not a requirement, but the applicant is offering that the right-of-way anyway. And it's not certain that they would be building it. That has to be determined at the time of. It depends, I think, somewhat on what else is going on along that street.
All right, thank you.
Good. One question. Are there the trees that are, I think, down, do they meet any definition of heritage trees, or are they going to be saved, or is that anything that the town has a concern about?
I don't know if any, we've looked at it briefly, but nobody has gone out to do that measurement. If there were any, they may not have to save them because it is an exempt subdivision. But I think for the most part, if there were any large trees, it may be difficult to save them just because of the grading and all that would have to take place. But that's something we can always talk about at the time of development.
I mean, you guys are the experts, obviously. They didn't look like a heritage trees, but I just didn't know how that fit in with the downtown area. So that is something that you'll look at as the process goes forward?
Well, We can look at it. I don't believe they would be required to keep those because it is an exempt subdivision, so that would not require a development plan that met those.
Oh, okay, I got
Yeah.
you. So regardless, it's just not, regardless of whether it is or isn't, it's just not going to be required.
Right.
Okay, I got you. All right, that's it. Any other questions?
I'm sorry, just some of the historical elements that they mentioned, are hardwood floor, like, what are we talking about with regard to the historical elements that might be preserved?
When Capital Area Preservation and our preservation planner visited, they identified some doors, I believe maybe one of the exterior doors and several interior doors, hardware, some of the original hardware. They were not certain about the flooring. That was not one of the designated significant features. The house is lovely, but it does have many replacement. The siding and some of the windows have been replaced. So the ones that were actually identified were doors and hardware.
Gotcha, thank you.
Perfect. Anyone else? Would someone like to make a motion for 22 REZ 22-107 West Park Street? Do we have the words?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion.
Go right ahead.
I find that the board find case number 22 REZ 22 is consistent with the comprehensive plan and all other applicable plans for the reasons set forth in the staff report, presentation, and discussion by the P&Z board.
Would someone like to second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Is there any additional discussion needed? In that case, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is Act 27 PRCR Master Plan Amendments. Luana Deans, Transportation Planning Engineer, will share the staff's presentation. There is not an applicant speaking on this case. All board members will, of course, have an opportunity to ask questions following the presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Board. Excuse me. This is a request to amend the Parks and Recreation Cultural and Resources Master Plan. The PRCR Master Plan is incorporated by reference into the Cary Community Plan. There are 3 amendments before you tonight, which will allow Cary to leverage state funding to build bike and pedestrian facilities adjacent to North Carolina Department of Transportation projects, or the NCDOT. These amendments will essentially save us money as it sets us up to have NCDOT build and pay for these bike ped facilities. NCDOT recently updated their complete street policy. It directs state projects to consider and incorporate pedestrian, bicycle, and transit modes into their future projects. It also outlines a cost share percentage between NCDOT and municipalities that states NCDOT will fully pay for the multimodal facility up to 10% of the project cost if the proposed facility is 1, in Cary's long-range plan, and 2, identified by NCDOT as a needed facility. The amendments tonight are addressing the first requirement, that first green bullet on the screen, and the facilities are adopted, that the facilities are adopted in our master plan. And we anticipate that NCDOT will likely pay for the full cost or a significant cost portion of each of the proposed amendments. 3 amendments are proposed this evening. You'll note the location maps for each amendment are provided in the staff report. The first 2 amendments are Greenway grade-separated crossings, and just to briefly review, an example of a grade-separated crossing is a bike or pedestrian bridge or tunnel which separates Greenway users from street traffic, highways, or railroads. And so the top right photo on the screen is the White Oak Creek Greenway. It's the MacArthur Greenway tunnel that goes under the railroad, separating the Greenway users from crossing the railroad. The grade-separated crossings provide a safer, more comfortable connection for Greenway users. There are maps in the staff report, but the two crossings are located at Green Level Church Road and at the proposed Stonewater Greenway. NCDOT is proposing to replace the Green Level Church Road Bridge over Kitts Creek. With that project, we'll get the vertical clearance we need to continue the greenway under the bridge, getting that vertical clearance for greenway users, runners, bikers traveling along the greenway. The second grade separated crossing is at Piney Plains Road and the proposed Piney Plains Greenway. The recommended improvement provides a safer crossing option for greenway users at the future on-off ramp for US 1 and US 64. And those cones illustrate the locations of those two amendments. The third amendment proposes to add a street-side trail on the west side of Maynard Road between Chapel Hill Road and Walnut Creek, connecting two east-west greenways already shown on the PRCR master plan. The photo shows an example of a street-side trail. Staff feels it's prudent to proceed with these three targeted amendments in order to be eligible for the maximum cost share per NCDOT's policy. We need to get out in front of these NCDOT projects because we want to make sure the facilities are incorporated into the planning and the design of the projects. On a side note, the PRCR department is currently working on a larger town-wide update to the Parks and Open Space Master Plan. You guys may have already heard about that. The consultant, staff, and stakeholders will be evaluating and recommending updates to the entire greenway system. This comprehensive update is underway, and we recognize that there are additional greenway facilities council, the Planning and Zoning Board, and residents may want and wish to explore, and these additional requests will be evaluated as part of that master plan update. Staff's review of the Imagine Cary Community Plan indicates the Move, Engage, and Shape chapters provide policies relevant to this amendment. The Move policies support safety for all users, promoting safe bike ped crossings, multimodal designs, and improving connections and closing gaps. The Engage policies highlight the importance of a strong greenway network, and the Shape policies support balancing our transportation investments to support all modes. This amendment was presented to Town Council in January, where they conducted a public hearing. No citizens commented. A council member asked whether Cary would be competing for LAP funds, which is a federal grant that we regularly apply for. Staff explained these improvements would not be competing for federal funds, but are funded with state money. And the improvements have to be located within the limits of an NCDOT project. Another council member asked, will these improvements rely on NCDOT or Cary design standards? And staff said NCDOT typically works with jurisdictions to use our standards, but jurisdictions may have to shoulder any additional costs if there are some aesthetic betterments that we want to incorporate. There have been no changes since the Town Council public hearing. Staff's preliminary finding is that the amendment is necessary to address a change in NCDOT's complete street policy, which now directs state projects to consider all modes in their future projects, and to leverage state funding to build bike and pedestrian facilities adjacent to future NCDOT projects. After the Planning and Zoning Board makes its determination on consistency, Town Council may consider action on the request. And this concludes staff's presentation. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Chris, any questions?
No questions.
No questions.
No questions.
No, sorry to be the odd guy out. This is an
No.
odd one. I totally understand if you don't know the answer. What kind of money are we saving here?
Millions of dollars, you know. So Greenway grade separated crossings. I mean, we're building a pedestrian bridge along Cary Parkway right now, and that's estimated around $6 million. Now, that actually does have federal funding, so 80% of it, if I recall correctly, I think it was 80% funding. So we're paying 20% our local match, and I think we're getting funding for 80% for that. But that
just pedestrian bridge is approximately $6 million. So think about these grade-separated crossings that could be incorporated into these NCDOT projects. Now, they do put a limit, right, when they say 10% of the project cost. So they're not going to write a blank check, right, but they will pay a significant portion of it, and it just determines how, and it's also relevant to how big that project is, too.
Great. Appreciate it.
John?
No questions.
No questions.
John?
No questions.
Mike?
No questions.
Excellent. I assume we do this as a bundle. We don't have to vote on each amendment. No. It's a bundle. Okay, perfect. I don't have any questions either.
I actually do have a motion.
We'll get the motion, but I just wanted to
Okay.
make sure I didn't have to do 3 of them.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Any other discussion? In that case, would someone make a motion for Act 27 Master Plan amendments? The words are on the screen.
Sure. I move that the board forward the Act 27 amendments to the PRCR Master Plan, an element of the Imagine Cary Community Plan, to Town Council with a recommendation for approval.
Second.
Second, okay, excellent. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We have no new business this evening, so based on that, I thank everyone for coming tonight, and the meeting is now adjourned.
All right, thank you. Thanks.